Welcome to Baseball Biz On Deck. I'm Mark McGwire, your host, and with me today, I have the prognosticator of baseball, the man who could dig deep, who could see what's actually going on between the teams, whether it be minor league teams, major league teams, or just some guy who knows something from the corner. Maybe not that. I got Matt Germain on today. How you doing, Matt?
I'm living the dream, buddy, all the time. How about you?
I tell you what, I'm having a great time. And I want to give kudos to you right here. Hopefully this doesn't embarrass you, but I know you've been doing a lot of rescue activity up north for people in some rather heavy downpours.
Right. The rains have been relentless in Nova Scotia and Halifax region in particular. And a lot of folks digging out of some water in their basements and throwing out a lot of goods and some people in peril. So hopefully everybody's okay now. And we can bounce back and have a better week this week.
You're here. Well, again, thank you, man. I appreciate it and wish the best for all those folks as well.
Definitely.
Talking about something a lot less important, baseball, but something we enjoy, our distraction, if you will. And of course, we're talking about Rays, the Tampa Bay Rays today with Matt, as always. I want to give a tip of the hat to a man who's meant a lot to baseball, who lives here in Tampa. And that's Mr. Fred McGriff. And let me play this little bit here from him.
Hello, hello. Hey. What a beautiful day. I'm just saying. Hello to everyone here from Atlanta to San Diego, Toronto, to my hometown of Tampa Bay. Hey. And everywhere in between. Thank you for showing up. It is awesome to be here accepting this honor. What a blessing from the man upstairs when your career is validated by former players and executives that saw you play. That's as good as it gets.
Yeah, Fred's, you know what, Matt? I love this. I mean, he was inducted in the Hall of Fame on Sunday. And lo and behold, you know, he doesn't have a logo on the cap that's going to be with him there in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
I mean, how many teams did he play for anyway?
Yeah. He was highly sought after, right? And for good reason. So it's one of those guys that when a team was aiming to acquire Fred McGriff, it's because they wanted to heighten their level of respect in the league. And I think that's what probably speaks most about Fred McGriff. Everybody respected him. He didn't have to speak loudly or do much other than what he was doing on the field to impress anyone. His professionalism and respect for other people always kind of showed through. And I think, you know, it's one of those types of careers that doesn't always get the respect that it likely deserved for a long time. And I'm glad, really happy for him and all the teams he played for, that he gets to represent all of them, even with a blank cap. So kudos to him for sure.
Indeed. I mean, he started out back like in 1986 with Toronto, went on to be a Padre, a Brave, Tampa Bay Devil Ray. Let's see what else he did. Yeah, a Cub. Let's see, and even the Dodger for a little while there too. So, man, talk about a busy career across this, you know, spanning several different teams over 19 years. But wow, I'm real impressed with him. I mean, being from Tampa as well, you know, he's been a lot to this community, and it's not unusual when you live in this area to see generations of players. Now, I'm not sure what his son's doing, but I can tell you, my son was going to high school at the same time as his at Jesuit, and his son was a outstanding quarterback for the team. And it just, you see an athlete, it's not surprising. There's a certain ethic, you know, that Fred probably passed on with, you know, being a professional and focusing on achievement and team. And as a quarterback, you know, his young son had to do all those things. Now, I have no idea what he's doing now, but, you know, it just kind of showed the character of him, even through his family.
Right. And I think, you know, if you've ever heard anybody say a bad thing about Fred McGriff, please show me, because I've yet to meet anybody or talk to anybody or chat with anyone online that's, that has a negative thing to say about him whatsoever. And after a career that's that long at so many places, that's kind of unique and noteworthy in its own right. So it's great. Both him and Scott Rolen are similar in that they were both quiet leaders. And so going in together is really kind of I don't know, if you're in Major League Baseball today and you look at the stars of today, and then you look at those two inductions, does that impact the way that you play the game after the fact? Or do you just say, well, this generation's different, so we're just going to play our own style and do it the way we do? So it's kind of interesting to think about a little bit.
Yeah, well, maybe it will give a heads up. I mean, there's been criticism in the past. It's like, do you not let Pete Rose in? Does Kurt Schilling not going to come in here because of this, that, and the other? Or there's others maybe had some bad behavior or said stupid things. And do you withhold that the participation to be in Valhalla of baseball because of that? Because the thing of it is, if these people, quite honestly, they become role models for the youngsters who watch them. I was watching, they got some special on Netflix, man. This is ridiculous. It's on the American Gladiators. You remember that thing? You're probably too young to remember that, but
yeah, I am. Yep.
It was a crazy show where long before you had American Ninja and all this, you had these muscle bound people and they would compete against, Johnny, whoever, and they would either some kind of battle, either pushing big giant balls against one another or jumping and leaping from place to place. But it came to be found out, I mean, the merchandising on the American Gladiator just went through the roof. But the thing came out was, okay, you guys are that big and that buff for a reason, and we can't really have that going on. This is the time of Mark McGwire, and so they said we're going to test you, okay? Oh, by the way, this test will start in 6 weeks.
Yeah. Whatever you do, don't travel to wherever you get your stuff.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It's crazy. And there's been on one of them. He actually they stopped him at the border coming up from Mexico with some roids and a handgun. And it's like, oh geez. But
the line that they've drawn in the Hall of Fame. Like I'm a complete Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. Just have a disclaimer in there about whatever it is that you need to have. Get it over with and let him see that before he dies. Other than that, like I've seen, like Roberto Malomar is a good example of somebody that made a mistake. He really spit on an umpire, which is at the time was one of the biggest things that you'd ever seen on that front in terms of other than the usual arguing or whatever between them. It was a complete disrespect of that individual, but they made the everything work thereafter. They get together all the time and chat now, and then next thing you know, he's in the Hall of Fame. So I think there's a line that they've drawn. Now the writers, they weren't given a fair shake in terms of what they have to work with when it comes to letting people into the Hall of Fame. There's other guys you can point to that should be in there and probably aren't because of the suspicions. I just think that, a museum is a museum. You want to highlight all the aspects of the game, put it all in there and let everybody decide for themselves what they should celebrate most and not.
Well, I like the idea of that too. I mean, of having Rose there, but also had the lesson of what happened with him. Right. And because the man cannot be denied with what he achieved. He is part of the history of the game. And if you're not going to put him in a museum that's about that game, well, I don't know. So we'll see. But again, kudos to Fred McGriff. So that was probably the best thing that happened to the Tampa Bay Rays this week. Oh, yep. Gosh, brother.
Yeah. You remember how it ended? Yeah, everything at the end blowed up. Blowed up good. Blowed up real good. Yeah.
Blown up. Yeah, blown up. Wow. I don't even know where to start, man. I mean, you and I, it's been a little while since we talked. It was before this All-Star game. Things were looking good. They weren't. Then, thank goodness, just for the All-Star season, All-Star game began, we walked in with a win. We had a win. We've been suffering something terrible. And then everything else happened after that. Oh, brother. It's like deflating the tires.
It really is. But I'd like to kind of sit here and just kind of forget about the last week and look at it in this way. Okay. We have 5 healthy pitchers as starters, right? McClanahan isn't shining probably as much as he would like. He's had his ups and downs during his starts that have kind of hindered his length. I don't know what that is, if that's him restricting velocity or not really having the touch and feel that he normally has if there's something there. But overall, the starters that we still have, not the ones on the IL, but the ones we still have are good to go, right? They don't have any innings limits. They're all healthy. We have 3 more months of the season to go, and we hope.
Here.
A bit. And then so they should be, in a good place on that front. We have some backup that's come up now that is very intriguing. So you've got Jacob Lopez in AAA. You've got Logan Workman, who's shining in AA. You have Ian Seymour was making his way back in the FCL. Kobe White has had over 7.1 innings. He's going to be jumping up to AAA very shortly. Andrew Kittredge is in AAA. He should be available to the Rays very shortly. Robert Stevenson's looked very solid for the pen. Yes, there's some shakiness in the pen, here and there and in blots. But overall, the pitching staff, we can say, has been solid through this whole down stretch of July, right? Yeah. I have no qualms about what the pitching has done. So we start there. We're like, okay, as we head towards the playoffs, the pitching is in a solid place. Yes, you can add a starter. That's definitely one part that I think they would like to add if they can, because you need that depth and you want to make sure you get to the finish line, right? It makes sense. But then you look at the lineup, and that's to me the most intriguing part, because the Rays bet on their own guys early in the season, in the off season, and they shone right away. So everybody assumed that was going to continue through the season in some way, shape, or form. And there are some slides that nobody predicted. Now, I just sent out a tweet about a question that WDAE put out, and it was like, well, what do we attribute Wander Franco's slide to, or in July, right? Is it because he was benched? Or other things. And I said, there's a lot of considerations in there. The feud with Randy could be ongoing. They might not, say publicly, but maybe it's still there. Wander Franco is already paid. He's under control through 2033. Well, what's his motivation for showing up every day and shining? And if you combine getting paid and getting crapped on by your front office, and them highlighting Randy Land at top of it, which I don't know what the source of the feud with Randy is, but that's just antagonistic at that point. Yeah. So, and then Randy has the play that he has, which is sheer laziness, and they still don't bench him, even though, Wander got benched, but it was a personality clash that they're saying Wander was benched for. So if that's going to be a benchable thing, shouldn't a lazy play that costs you the game be a benchable thing? Here. So a lot of that source really comes down to Kevin Cash and how he's managing his players. And there's a lot to kind of delve into on that front. Kevin Cash's contract ends in 2024. There's no guarantee he'll be here beyond. It's funny that the Rays haven't picked up the option for 2025 yet. They've kept that open. They haven't locked him up for longer. They haven't given him an extension. They're going to be monitoring this, because if this slide continues through the fall and they somehow miss a playoff spot, which is all impossible right now, there are only 5 games, so they could be out of the playoffs. And so if they end up out of the playoffs, what happens to Kevin Cash and what happens to the Rays lineup? Now, to stop that from happening, the onus is on the front office. There's something that has to change. If they don't change something in the lineup right now and stop the madness, basically, and tweak something just to energize the team. It doesn't have to be, enormous and mind-blowing. It doesn't have to be Ohtani, but it has to be enough that it gives the players the faith that the front office has their backs and they see the potential in the team and they're willing to go for it. And so as long as it's that much, I think they'll be okay.
Well, let me ask you something here. In the past, we've talked about leadership and the Yankees. They say that, well, they made. Let's step back. Forget the Yankees. I mean, a lot of times the teams, when you look at leadership, we had Charlie Morton as a leader, but that's a pitcher who isn't necessarily sitting there in the dugout all the time. Is there a leader amongst the Rays right now that you think you can say that guy can raise them up?
Really good question. So here's like the guys that you would want to be leaders that were paid to be leaders. I'm not sure they're doing that. So Manuel Margot was paid not because he's a stellar outfielder, and he's given a lot of money and raised money to be there. And I'm not sure that whatever intent they had with that is working out, obviously, because you've had the Yandy and Randy feud. You've had the Randy and Wander feud. And then you have like just this general kind of, I don't know, sudden lack of cohesion, which is weird because at the beginning of the year, everybody was hanging off the guardrails and cheering each other on. They seemed really intense right at the beginning of the year. And now it's kind of lackadaisical and kind of aloof.
Yeah. I mean, I look here at Siri and sometimes the swings seem, yeah, okay, if I get it, that's great. Or, oh, I didn't hit it. What's the matter with that? He just seems either disappointed after each hit after each swing. And I'm disappointed. It seems like a 1, 2, 3. Okay, there, I didn't get it. Maybe next time around. And I got a text with a friend today. He says, it was a bad series of the Rays, as you know. There was a good turnout for all the games. I don't know. Well, I'm going to go on the rest of that. And I said, well, here's what I saw earlier today. I was flipping around on YouTube, and there I see him, Steve Rogers, climbing up and looking at Thanos. And I'm waiting for him to say, I can do this all day. but at that moment, the swelling up of the music's coming and all these portals open and all these heroes are stepping out onto the ground. And it's time to hear those words, Avengers Assemble. And I want that right now for the Rays. Rays Assemble. Come on, man. I said to my friend here, I said, that's why I said, I think it's time for the Rays to have the Avengers Assemble music for every player's walk-up music, a unifying force through music, stirring the players and fans into a frenzied victory mindset.
Yeah. I think a winning streak could energize them, but you're right. Like there's a lack of Charlie Morton should have been re-signed by the Rays. They had the perfect setup to keep him around, for the rest of his career. And I don't understand what the trepidation was there. I really don't. It still baffles me to this day. And then they turn around and they give Tyler Glasnow $25 million. I'm not sure he's the guy that you want leading the team because he's cursing and swearing and very intense and in big moments. And he's not. I don't want to say he's not approachable, but he's very big. He's very loud. He's very boisterous, and some guys might not take to that, right? So yeah. I don't know. If you look for guys in a clubhouse, not everybody's going to be the prototypical leader. You want different types of leaders in there so that everybody has a source to go to anyway. So it's a diversity of leadership is what you want. And I think in the pen it's fine. They have guys like Kittredge coming back. They have Fairbanks. They have a lot of experience in there overall. Diekman and there's nothing lacking on that front. In a rotation, Eflin is very quiet. McClanahan might be developing into a leader, but he might not be there as well. He's still learning his craft. So to me, that's what they're mostly missing. So a Lance Lynn type acquisition for that rotation would be monumental because he has the grit. He has the don't never say die attitude. And he would take those other starters by the horns and say, no, we got to do this. We got to do this. Did you see this happen? Yada, yada, yada. He's a completely different type of pitcher than Corey Kluber was. Oh, yeah. But he'll have the same impact in terms of getting the conversation going between, the pitchers. So that's fine. Let's say you do that. But it's the lineup. How do you change the lineup? I think Paul Goldschmidt would be a great acquisition.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't know what type of leader he is with St. Louis. He might be quiet. He might be, I don't know. I can't speak to that. But to me, him or Pete Alonso, the Rays have always been chasing a big first baseman that's solidifying the lineup and kind of anchoring it. I still don't think they have that. Luke Raley's getting close to being that. But to me, he's still a valuable outfield piece because Josh Lowe is showing cracks. And if Josh Lowe can't handle, doesn't turn it around in the second half, then you want Luke Raley available out there. They don't have much in terms of left-handed outfielders coming up in AAA. So to me, that's what I would say is they need a guy who's a left-handed bat for the outfield, hopefully. Cody Bellinger is an intriguing guy. And then Pete Alonso, if they can somehow manage to take him away from the Mets while he's struggling, that would be epic because I think the Rays could actually extend him. He's a Tampa Bay guy. And I think the Mets are looking for change. Kyle Manzardo could headline the deal for the Mets, and show the fans, okay, we've got an MLB ready first baseman and we can afford to do other things with the money we save, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think Steve Cohen's looking for change. So maybe they luck out and get that. But, more realistic is probably that they do the status quo at that position and go for that left-handed bat that's in the outfield and maybe a catcher. Maybe a catcher like Omar Narvaez with the Mets, could be available. And he was injured for the first half of the year, but he's a solid veteran, behind the plate guy. He's really improved his receiving. He's a left-handed bat, so they could pair him with Bethancourt and kind of go back and forth. I don't know how injured Mejia is, but I'm expecting 8 weeks. So, those kinds of moves, I think, are what you're going to see. Or they'll go for a younger guy and give up 2 or 3 prospects to get that younger guy that's a little bit more elite and can be controlled. Sort of like the Paredes deal and the Luke Raley deal, a guy that has the potential that they see that nobody, can give them the playing time they need. But in this case, I think they need that veteran. Like Tommy Pham was mentioned. I think that's putting a spark on gasoline. I just don't think that's the right one. Tommy, there, we've done that.
Oh, Tommy's got a lot of spirit, man, but he's ready to chastise somebody very quickly too. And I'm not talking about necessarily the most positive of guidance, but he'll certainly point out if somebody needs to step up. Oh gosh.
Do you have any trade candidates that you think they should target?
Oh, well, you said Goldschmidt. I like that one. I did think about him. And again, I don't think anybody's going to go after his Ohtani for whatever it would cost too much on any team. And I don't. I mean, I was thinking hitter simply because, we are so weak right now. I think we got the people we can invigorate. Then it comes down to if it's just for grins and giggles. Let's say Ohtani. One, you're renting him for a year. And how many great prospects, how many great, people that you're looking in the minor leagues right now would you wind up surrendering for somebody like him? I don't see that happening at all.
An injury, ruin his value altogether.
Another guy I looked at, but he just signed an extension with the Braves, and that was d'Arnaud. You were talking about catcher. I think, what, and he would bring a maturity back to the team as well. That's another part. d'Arnaud would be one of them. Ones I would see as a critical piece for the team. I don't know.
The guys that I'm hoping that they target, because I know Mariners are looking for some help, and I think there's a chance that the Rays help them out at second base. They're having a really hard time filling that position. And to go get Matt Brash or Munoz from the Mariners and kind of shore up the back end, or they could target Josh Hader, because to me, Colin Pache has shown some cracks. And Jalen Beeks is still in AAA. We're not sure what he's going to be able to offer. Diekman's been solid so far, but they need a second lefty that can kind of dominate the back end. So if you're looking at October, let's say the Rays do remain in the playoff picture and they get into October, how much are you trusting Pete Fairbanks in Boston, let's say, and it's ice cold?
Yeah.
And you need a high leverage reliever. Who are you putting out there? Like, sure, Andrew Kittredge you could dream about and say, okay, maybe he's back in form at that point, and I'm hoping he is, but he can't go out every night, number one. And having a lefty dominate like that, like Josh Hader, would be huge for the Rays pen, I think. So I think Josh Hader, to me, even maybe Seth Lugo in San Diego, he's been a solid starter. He'd be a good fifth for the Rays. If they need to use him as a reliever in the playoffs, they could use him in that role. He's been there before. They can give him 2-3 innings if needed. So I think those two acquisitions I would really be happy with. So those are the ones that I've kind of have on the top of my head. And Jonathan India just became available again,
Oh.
apparently, for the Reds. So that one, I know for a fact the Rays were in on, a year or two ago. So if he is somebody that they feel could perform in the second half, and kind of do away with a lot of the woes that they've had, to kind of try to balance out at second base, I just don't know what he would cost. They would probably ask for a lot for India, and I think they may, attempt to get Curtis Mead or Junior Caminero, and I don't think I would give up either for him, just because of the cost, contract wise. I don't know if the Rays would be ready to extend India and make it worthwhile.
Yeah, I keep looking at who we got coming up, and I mean, Jonathan Ronda's coming up, and not that these are key players to make that large a difference, but looking at who we do have just basically as reserves, Vidal Brujan, and who is that? I can never say that young man's name. It's Basabe.
Yep, Oslevis Basabe.
Thank you.
Yep, and he's a solid infielder. Those last Jonathan Aranda and Oslevis Basabe are two guys I think the Padres would really be interested in if we asked for Seth Lugo and Josh Hader. They would be, because look at when they demanded, quote unquote, demanded that Jay Cronenworth was in the deal with the Rays, right? In the past. It's a very similar player where he's a utility player with low power initially, but really high average. And I think Jonathan Aranda is in the same mold as Jay Cronenworth, to be honest.
Well, we'll see how that plays out, my friend. It's interesting to me. It's always funny. I mean, you knew the Ohtani talk was going to be out there, not just for Rays, but across all of MLB. And right now he's saying basically, you know what? And I think any of the big players out there are going to say it. I'm really not interested in the trade talk right now. I just want to get to the playoffs. So
if I were the Angels right now, if I were the owner, I would go get Josh Hader and I would go get Marcus Stroman. Stroman is a SoCal guy. You go get those two, you go for it. Because if you're going to keep Ohtani, you better be going for it. And not just with what you have. You've got to put all your chips in the middle and show him that you're going for it. If they do that and they make it to the playoffs and have a really good run, I think they have a chance to re-sign him, because then he'll see them acting the way they should. If they decide to just fluff it here, fluff it there, and keep him, and then that's the dumbest thing they could possibly ever do. Even if they eke into the playoffs, he will be gone, because he won't believe that they're willing to go for it at that point.
Yeah, the Angels have been interesting to watch. I mean, I keep thinking, the highest expectations, Trout, Ohtani, and all the others out there. And Artie Moreno's like you said, what's he going to do? I can't see him giving Ohtani away for whatever 40 some odd games or 50 games, whatever's left at that point. So let's see what else we can go, my friend. I do want to mention something about the Orioles series without going too deep into that. I've really worried that we were overplaying Pete out there. I mean, we had him out there 3 nights in a row. I mean, a good reliever, a good closer can usually do that. But, Pete seems like he's still kind of coming back from that circulation thing in his hand.
Yeah, and he won't say no. They just knew how big the series was. And they were trying to lock it down. I don't think it's optimal. You're right. He's a 2 Tommy John guy. You don't want him to have a third. And it's, it's disconcerting, because if you're burning him at both ends this early in the mid-season, then what's he going to look like in October? But hopefully Andrew Kittredge can take some pressure off him. Hopefully Kobe White comes in and shows really well in AAA and can be an added chip as well. But I think, Robert Stevenson's also going to earn more of a back end role over time. And it'll be intriguing. I would not be shocked if he is like the second. So there'll be let's say Andrew Kittredge, and then you're tied between Stevenson and Fairbanks when you're late in games, just because of the wear and tear and when you want to use them. I feel like Pete Fairbanks probably is better used in the playoffs as a fire hose guy when first sign of trouble hits in the 6th, 7th, or 8th. You throw him out there, you put it out, and he's got that fire where he's not going to get rattled and he can get the swings and misses, right?
Oh yeah, I love his eyes, man. You look at him when he comes up there to pitch, and they are nothing but flints of steel, and he's just amazing as a player. He's a true warrior out there. It's been exciting to watch and see the Trop fill up a few of these weekends recently too. On a whole other issue, it's this weekend sellout this past week playing the Orioles. Fun stuff. But you could hear the Baltimore fan base out there. They're pretty strong.
Seattle had the Jays fans out there, so it happens. Yeah,
it does, and it's interesting. I think in part because when I think of all the spring training around this area, and the Orioles are just right down the road in Sarasota, the Ed Smith Stadium. So I know they've got a base there, and I keep thinking, well, and everybody wants to come down to Florida during the hot months for one reason or another, and they pull a ball game in there with it as well. So I don't know. I don't think if the Rays continue to play like they are, they're going to be continuing to fill the stadium for the remainder of the year, but we'll see how that plays. And you mentioned earlier about Kevin Cash. You look out there on Twitter, et cetera, sooner or later, somebody's always ready, not just to chastise the manager, but ready to toss him. And I can only wonder what happens in those locker rooms. Kevin seems like such a soft-spoken man at the press conferences. And I always wonder what a manager is like once those locker room doors are closed and it's just him, the coaches, and that team, and how dramatic they may get or not, and how they speak to that team, and how, what's I want to say, not demanding. I guess that's the word for the word, demanding they are. I would love to be that little proverbial fly on the wall and see what that Kevin looks like.
I just wish he'd use his instincts more and rely on the data less. There are moments in games sometimes, and it's small things, tiny things, timing things, where you can tell he's going with the data and not baseball instincts. And I think if he was using his gut, solely, sometimes things would turn out a little bit different because of that. But you never know with baseball. I mean, he's not out there doing the work, so he has to trust his guys, the guys he's given. I think overall, Kevin Cash is doing an excellent job. I'm not throwing him under the bus at all. I'm saying that there are signs that the control and when you decide to bench a $230 million player in a market where you've never paid anybody close to that amount, I don't want to say they're red flags, but there's huge implications in terms of how you're managing that room. And you did it publicly. You didn't just sit him there and not tell anybody anything about it. You went out there in the media and basically threw him under the bus, like literally. So Wander Franco has a good reason. Like it used to be in the old days that the media would talk about why a guy was sitting, because let's say Randy, for example, right? Randy misplays that. If he doesn't play the next two games, the media and the fans know. The manager doesn't have to say anything, right? Yeah. But they know why he's sitting. And so they could have done the same thing with Wander and kept it in-house, but they didn't. Now, is that because Wander said he would go to the media, or they knew he was going to, or he'd already done an interview about it? I don't know. But what I do know is that it shows some cracks in the management of the Rays. And to be honest, like, I don't want to go all the way back to the Blake Snell situation, but there are moments, through the whole, playoff tenure when I feel like I'll tell you the one that sits the worst with me about Kevin Cash. Okay. And when I started losing a tiny bit of faith, it's the end of last year, the last month and a half to 2 months. Okay. Including the playoffs, because it seemed like losing was acceptable. And to me, that changed a lot of things, and it changed the mojo. It changed the feel of the team. And it was almost like, oh, well, we have to make sure everybody's healthy. And that became the priority instead of working through every game to win. Yeah. And so when you're changing that mentality of the team willingly and openly and telling people about it, it has a resounding effect. And they ended up going into the playoffs, just kind of sitting there, not amped up and not grinding through it. And meanwhile, the Red Sox were doing the completely opposite thing, and they were riled up and ready to sock anybody in the face that they went up against. Like, you need that attitude, that grit, and I don't know if he has that. I really don't know. And I wish I would see more fire from him, especially as the season wears on in the second half. That's all.
Well, and that's what I say. I wonder about it, because we're not seeing it on the field, and I'm keep hoping that somehow or other he's communicating in a very impactful way to those young men. Get up. Let's make this happen. We're going to back you. We're going to go with this. Dig out the Avengers Assemble music. I don't know, but don't look like that guy just holding his face in his hand, murmuring and looking at the stats, and if that's the case, yeah, I don't want a statistician running a game. And hopefully that's not the case with him, but you're pointing out, obviously there's moments where that is the case. I'm not ready to ditch Kevin, but Kevin, do something for us, please, man.
Oh, he's like anybody else. Like, how long did it take for Dusty to get his World Series?
Yeah.
And you have to learn along the way as a manager, I think there's a point where you mature as a manager and you're willing to take the heat from the front office if you do X, Y, Z and fail. Whereas I don't think he's been there so far. Maybe after he gets his next contract, he'll be good to go. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see. I know you got some things going on today, and so I won't keep you much longer here, but I did want to take a quick look back to yours and my projections for the Rays and see if maybe we need to amend them on the number of games that they would win this year. you remember this? Huh?
Yes, I do.
You said 107 and I said 102, and only 59 games remaining. We got how many games we won right now? Let's see, 62. Yeah. So
almost impossible.
Yeah.
Who could have predicted that July? It's insane.
Lord. And if I kept telling myself during this period, by the way, Matt, I kept saying, remember, Mark, Matt said there will be hard times ahead.
Yeah, it's true.
And I said, yeah, but did he mean as much?
Because baseball. Always because baseball.
That's it, brother.
Humble even the best teams. So you have to keep your nose to the grindstone always.
All right. Any final words you want to impart upon the audience today, my friend?
Yes, I would say I'm hoping for 2 trades from the Rays that are going to impact the active roster, and I would also expect to see 1 minor league trade where they're offsetting their Rule 5 draft guys, just to protect the minor leaguers, make sure they have the wheel churning in terms of keeping talent coming through at the bottom. So the other thing I'd like to say is look for a lot of transactions because they're going to start fitting in those draft picks they signed in the lower minors. So you're going to see a flurry of promotions, and that's going to be fun to watch.
Wow. Well, I thank you, Matt. And you and I have to talk again once all the trade deadline has passed and see what Neander and company have decided to build a better team. So thank you,
Absolutely.
my friend. And I know you got an event to go to. So
yep. All good. We'll get in touch after the trade deadline and look over all the mistakes they made, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we're here to criticize.
That's right.
All right. Well, go enjoy your cake and have a wonderful evening, Matt. Thanks again for joining us. And Matt, once again, sharing with the Rays Up. Looking forward to seeing what's going to happen for the remainder of the year.
All right. Have a good one, Mark.
You too, my friend.
Cheers.
Special thanks to Matt Germain for joining us here today. Just remember, you can find Matt on Twitter at Matt, MAT, _Germain, GERMAIN _. You can find me, Mark, at the BaseballBiz on Twitter. And you can also find me at BaseballBiz, www.baseballbizondeck.com, and anywhere you like on the directories, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, etc. So until next time, thanks again, and we look forward to talking with you again real soon. Special thanks to XAKRUX for the music, Rocking Forward.